Hey, Plumber-Tom here. If you're studying from the Mathematics for Plumbers and Pipefitters book, you've come to the right place. I'm glad to help you with your understanding. Don't forget to check in the description below this video for access to books and resources that will help you with your understanding. There are online courses and other things that you can take that will help you prepare for a state test. When you purchase from those links, you're helping me to be able to create more great content. Thanks for watching. Hello, welcome to this presentation of Mathematics for Plumbers and Pipefitters. My name is Thomas, and in this presentation we are going over Unit 19, which is 45-degree diagonal and pipe length. This is a continuing discussion on this 45-degree triangle. We've looked at offsets, we've looked at diagonal, and in last Unit 18 we looked at the constants. We found that the constant to get the diagonal, if you have the offset, is... You tell me, what is it? Yes, it's a 1.414. Never forget it. If you did forget it, then I need you to write that on a Post-it, write it on your mirror with a bar of soap, write it somewhere where you're going to see it every single day until you've got it. Lock it in your memory. Okay, so in this unit, we're going to start out by emphasizing the fact that if we're going to make a cut for a diagonal, let's have a look at a picture here. We have a diagonal and we need to get a cut. Obviously we have to subtract for our fittings, but first we need a measurement, right? Now in the field, the book points out you're going to go and take field measurements. You're going to find out your offset that way. For the book, they're just going to give us a certain measurement. Say they'll give us the offset. And based on that, we need to figure out what is the center-to-center measurement from 45 to 45. And then we're going to subtract off for fittings. Basic stuff. We've already been doing this. And so this is a continued exercise, just practicing this over and over, because this is what we do. This is what we do all the time as plumbers. We find our center-to-center, we subtract for our fittings, and in this case, we're going to be dealing with that 45-degree triangle and calculating for the diagonal. Let's get right to work. We've got our sample problem, and it says solve for center to center and end-to-end lengths for the threaded pipe K. We can see here on the diagram that we have K is this length between 45s, and at the bottom it says 1-inch threaded pipe. We're going to be going to the back of the book again to find out our takeoffs for fittings, but first we need our center-to-center measurements, right? We can see the answers here on the sample problem, but let's figure out how do we come to these answers. Here we have it step by step. It's all spelled out. Let's look at number 1. The first thing we're going to do is convert that measurement, which is 7 3/8 of an inch, into a decimal, because we're going to be cranking this through a calculator. Now remember, in data table 1, there's a table. If you don't have a calculator, you can convert a fraction to a decimal just by looking it up on that table. We know we can also put that into our calculator. If you divide 3/8, 3 divided by 8 is going to give you 0.375. So we can say, okay, 7.375. We now have a decimal inch measurement. Let's go on to the next step. We're finding the center-to-center length. What do? Well, hey, from last time we figured it out. We times our offset by 1.414, and it's going to give us our diagonal. So in this case, 1.414 times 7.375, that's going to give us a center-to-center measurement of 10.482. I don't know what they've got written all over here. And it says 250 inches. Let's pretend that that's not in there. And let's just convert 0.482 over to fractions. Once again, data table number 1 is going to give us 0.482 is the same as, or really close to, 7/16. So we end up with 10 7/16. That's what we need. anytime we're doing exercises here, we're going to move that back into a fraction where we can use that on a measuring tape. Okay, let's go on to step 3. Step 3, find the total fitting allowance. So for this, we need to go back to data table 5. Let's go. I've got a finger in unit 19, flipped it back to data table 5, and here we see it. If you remember, we were dealing with a 1-inch threaded pipe. So let's look that up. On the nominal pipe size, far left column, we have 1 inch. Let's follow that down to the 1-inch row. Then as we come across, we're dealing with 45s. So let's go to the 45-degree fitting. And the amount that we are going to subtract is from center to face is 1 1/8. But remember, with the threaded fittings, that we have to subtract off of that 1 1/8 the amount that the pipe threads into the fitting. In this case, we're looking at 1/2 of an inch. So for each side, for each 45, we're going to take 1/8 minus 1/2. That's going to end up giving us 5/8. We're going to subtract 5/8 for each of those fittings. Step 4 here is going to give us our end-to-end measurement. End to end equals center to center minus the fitting allowances. We know that. In this case, end to end equals 10 7/16. Now we calculated that 10 7/16 by using our 1.414, and so we know what our center to center is. Now we subtract the fittings. Follow this line through. We're going to subtract 2 times 1 1/8. That's from the face of the fitting to the center of the fitting, minus 2 times 1/2. That's how far the pipe threads into the fittings. And all of that's in brackets telling us, let's get that taken care of first, right? Now, when we were back at data table 5, I was just rambling it out. If you just take 1 1/8 minus 1/2, you're going to get 5/8. Another way we might write this is 5/8 plus 5/8, rather than how they wrote that all out in brackets. However you want to get to it, just make sure you're keeping track of what you need to subtract and getting the accurate fitting allowance. 5/8 plus 5/8, or that whole bracket thing that they have, is going to equal 1 1/4 when you put those together. That's the total fitting allowance we're going to subtract for both sides of that cut. So we have end to end equals 10 7/16 minus 1 1/4. So as we subtract that out, we get end to end equals 9 3/16. All right, comments on this fractional subtraction. They're doing 7/16 minus 1/4. I'm going to show you how to do this with fractions, but let me just say, it's okay for you to have a builder's measurement calculator. You can get an app on your phone, or you can buy a builder's architectural calculator, but basically where you can just input feet and inches and fractions of an inch, whatever you need to do, and you can subtract them out that way. I really don't mind if you use calculators in that way to get to this end, right? But it is important for you to know how to subtract the fractions. So let's just make sure we're clear on that before we move on. All right, I got my notebook out here, and we got to this step, end to end equals 10 7/16 minus 1 1/4. You can't just subtract those right out. We got to do a little bit of conversion on our fractions, right? Mainly because we got to look at common denominators. So you can't subtract fourths from 16ths. Let's convert those fourths over. So if I want to take 1/4 and convert it into 16ths of an inch, I just got to think, well, what do I multiply by 4 to get it to equal 16? Well, 4 times 4 is 16. So then I need to multiply the top by 4. And we bring those straight across, we get 4/16. So we could rewrite that 10 7/16 minus 1 4/16 equals our end-to-end measurement. We can subtract those out. The whole numbers will subtract, and that will give us 9. And if we take over here, let's do this, 7/16 minus 4/16 is going to give us 3/16. You can subtract those right out, right? 9 3/16. That's how we come to it. as I mentioned before, you can use a calculator, but it's kind of important that you're capable of doing this in case you don't have a calculator, because on the state test you might not be able to use those fractional measurement calculators. Now it's time for you to do your exercises. Here we have the exercises. There's a diagram. This is just all the same. We're going to have this section that's K. It's our diagonal, just like in the sample problem. If you look at the table below, they're going to give you the offset for each one, as well as the pipe size, and that way you can know what your takeoff is going to be, your fitting allowances. So for each of these, 1 through 9, you'll need to run through those calculations. I'm going to suggest you have a separate piece of paper. You can write that out as you go, and then get to your answers for each one of these. First, you're going to get your center to center by multiplying the offset by 1.414. Then, once you have that, you'll go and subtract fittings for the threaded end to end for that pipe size, the copper end to end for that pipe size, and the PVC end to end for that pipe size. We're just trying to get our cuts, right? Now it's going to take a minute. You've got 9 problems, and you've got to get center to center and end to end for each type of pipe. In the end, what is this all about? This is something that you can use all the time when you're doing rough plumbing. If you're using 45 degrees, then you times it by 1.414, you subtract off your fittings, and you've got your cut. And this is seriously everyday life for a plumber. Welcome to the trade. I will see you next time.